Hey folks, Brian with Foam Products. So there's not a lot of information out in the marketplace on flooring underlayments. So hopefully this tutorial will give you an opportunity to learn a little bit about the marketplace, the materials in the marketplace, and what products you should be using for your installation. First, let's talk about the two dirty little secrets of the industry. The first is that on day one, most of the products in the marketplace perform at about the same rate. But on day 100, they don't. And it's an important part of your decision-making process. The second dirty secret is there are ratings called IIC ratings and STC ratings. So here's the dirty secret on IIC and STC. They're all kind of BS. And the reason they are is there's no standard way to test in the industry right now. So you can have multiple kinds of flooring. You can have a 6-inch concrete, an 8-inch concrete, plywood floor, a plywood floor with a suspended ceiling, an 8-inch concrete with a suspended ceiling and insulation, or you could have nothing underneath the ceiling at all. So when we say they're kind of BS, it's because there's no standard way to test. So you have to take the IIC and the STC. It's kind of generalized understanding of where those products perform in the marketplace, and not a hard understanding of how they perform in each application. Because again, there's no standard way to test them. So what is IIC? IIC stands for Impact Installation Class. And really what that is as you walk across the floor, it's the sound that your shoe makes on the floor. So what's an STC rating? STC stands for Sound Transmission Classification. That's when someone's blaring a radio and the sound is going through the floor to the room below. So there's also a third classification called the Delta IIC. Delta is an engineering term that stands for change in. So it's the change in the IIC with an underlayment and without an underlayment. In all of those classifications, IIC, STC, and Delta IIC, the higher the number, the better performing that material is in the class. So let me give you a real life example of what this means. Let's say you go to the shoe store and you buy a new pair of tennis shoes. When you put those on, they feel great, and then you take them home. About 2 weeks later, they don't feel good anymore. That's because the shoe companies know if you put an inexpensive foam in there and you walk on them, the foam collapses over time, but by the time you realize it, you're not going to bring those shoes back. The same thing happens with underlayments. Depending on the underlayment that you pick, on day one, it may feel great and perform great, but on day 100, after it's been walked on for a long time, it's not going to feel that way, and it's not going to perform. So let's talk about the three main options in the marketplace that you're going to pick from. When you go to that store, you're going to be presented with really three. There's a couple other ones like cork and rubber that are out there, but they're not main players. The three are closed cell foam, polyurethane foam, and fiber. Let's talk fiber first. Fiber is really textile that's bought from the mill. It's shredded and then put back together and made into an underlayment. There's two main issues with that. Number one is it's going to crush over time. And number two is if it gets wet, it has a tendency to stay wet. The other two options are foams. And foams are really just bubbles. But there's two types of bubbles. The first is a closed cell foam. That would be either an EVA or an IXPE. And a closed cell foam is like a ping pong ball. When you crush it, it stays crushed. When you crush it, it loses its acoustic capabilities, and they're gone forever. The other foam, which is a bubble, is a polyurethane foam. Polyurethanes are like tennis balls. When you squeeze them, they come back up into shape. So here's an example of a crosslink polyethylene foam. It's typically found in the pad attached foam that you'll see on luxury vinyl planks or luxury vinyl tiles. As you can see, there's a foam on the back of this pad, but you can also see that there's a pattern in it. And the way that they get that pattern in it is they run it over a machine that actually crushes the foam and it leaves the pattern in. The same thing happens when you walk on it, you'll crush that foam as well. So here's an example of a polyurethane foam. If you take a typical screwdriver and you press it into the foam, you can see that it compresses the foam. But as you take the screwdriver away, that foam comes up into shape. It's called compression set resistance, and the better compression set resistance you have, the longer the life you have in your foam, and the longer the ability to perform acoustically in the application. So here's an example of a fiber-based product. You'll see it's got a film on one side. You flip it over to this side, you can see the different fibers that are in it. Now that could be anything. It could be jeans, could be t-shirts, could even be carpet scrap. So now that you have the basics, how do you pick which material for your installation? Well, a couple criteria. If you're a house flipper, I'd probably go with the least expensive material. Those are the closed cell foams, the IXPEs or the crosslink polyethylenes. Those materials are inexpensive and they'll do the job at the very beginning. Those EVAs or crosslink polyethylenes at the retail market will probably sell in that $39 to $45 range. So if your installation is going to be in your home and you're going to be there a while, you probably want a little higher quality product. That's going to be your polyurethane foams. When you look at those from a price range, those are going to range anywhere from $60 to $70 per roll. So let's say you're a landlord and you own a rental space. Let's say there's 4 units in your building. You probably want to lean towards the polyurethane foams. And here's why. Number one, they're going to last longer and perform. Your tenants are going to be happier. And number two, let's say you have an idiot tenant and you've got to replace the floor after you kick them out. There's a good chance you don't even have to replace the underlayment. You can just put a new floor on top of that. So lastly, I want to talk about pad attached flooring. So this has been around. A lot of times it comes with luxury vinyl tiles or luxury vinyl planks. And what they've basically done is they've attached the underlayment to the board for you. The issue with this is they use crosslink polyethylene foams on these products. And again, crosslink polyethylene foams don't have a long performance lifespan. That's one of those day 1, day 100 options you got to go after. So the question is, can you use an underlayment with a pad attached floor? And the answer to that question is yes and no, unfortunately. If you do use an underlayment with it, make sure you check the warranty from the floor manufacturer, because sometimes using underlayments will void your warranty. On the other hand, some underlayment manufacturers will pick up the warranty of the floor if you do use their product. The other thing you want to watch out for is the thickness of the underlayment that you use. If you're using anything over 2 millimeters thick or so, you may end up stressing the joints, the locking mechanisms of your floor. If you do that, over time, they may crack, and then you have a board that pops. So hopefully this gave you enough base information that you can make an educated decision when you're at the retailer and you're talking about the underlayment options that you have with your flooring. And if you're still confused, you can always get a hold of us at Foam Products, and we'll help you through that decision-making process. I'm Brian Cully. We're Foam Products. Thanks for listening.